Welcome back to Dukascopy TV. Today I'm joined in the studio by Julien Schaerer, Managing Director of Antiquorum, and we're talking about a very unusual way to invest. Julien, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're talking about vintage timepieces. Are these a good way to invest, and how can one go about putting their hands on one?
Well, that's a two-part question. I would start by saying that it's not only vintage timepieces, it can also be newer timepieces that have been already pre-owned, because in some way, the vintage timepieces that are collectible today might apply to the timepieces that are being sold today that might be collectible tomorrow. So, it's a double kind of strategy that you have to look at. To answer the question, yes, it is a good investment, and some of my clients have really dedicated part of their income to really invest it into wristwatches as a serious part of their portfolio, but also taking into consideration that it's also a fun thing to do and something that they can also wear on their wrist every day and enjoy. So, that's an added benefit that you get from that. And then you said where can you get them? Well, there's a variety of sources. Of course, today, the web is a possibility where you can find some watches. And then, of course, the auction world is an important part, probably where most of the more important timepieces are traded today. And of course, there's also watch shows around the world that you can attend. And if you know what you're doing, hopefully, find a good deal.
I see. And what about the big brand watches that we all know, things like Rolex? How have they performed in the last, say, 10 years?
Rolex has performed really well. I mean, you have to remember also that Rolex was a mass-produced watch, and what really makes them valuable today is that they were considered as, well, I don't want to say relatively inexpensive, but compared to some of the other, they were a Rolex, they were a sports brand before anything else, and it's a more difficult area to enter into because there's a lot of fakes and there's a lot of parts that have been changed, and all those factors actually greatly diminish the value of the pieces. So it does take a lot of research and it takes a lot of time to find the right timepiece. But if you look at most of my clients that have bought Rolexes 10 years ago, I would say a big majority of the pieces they bought, they definitely would be in the profit range if they were to sell today. But quality is probably the most important thing, and that is probably what determines the success rate of how expensive the timepiece can sell when you resell it later on.
I see. And Julien, can you give us a little bit of advice on when's the best time to buy and sell?
Well, I mean, obviously, our market, I think, like most other markets, are also dependent on how the economy is going. Obviously, a lot of our clients are investors, are bankers, doctors, lawyers, and of course, how well their business goes also determines on how much disposable income they have to invest into watches. So I don't think there's really a specific time to say, oh, this is the right time. For example, would it be better today to invest in, for example, 2-3 years ago? I think in general, if you look at it, I would say the earlier you can get into the market and invest, the better it is, because if you look at most of the collectible timepieces, they've definitely had a tendency to increase in value. So, the general rule would be to say, the longer you wait, the more expensive will it be for you to enter that market.
I see. And just lastly, Julien, if I wanted to go about getting my hands on one of these now, what would be the first advice you would give me?
I think do your research. I think, to spend a lot of time to find out first what is right for you, because, you want to find a watch that you like. The design-wise is a very important thing. Usually, the impulse buying is probably usually the worst investment that people usually do. They walk in a store, they see something they suddenly not like without really searching anything about it, and then when they come to resell because they don't really like it that much anymore, then they usually take a tremendous hit on what they buy. So, do your research about how many different watches there are out there that can really be right for you. Things like color of the dial, color of the case, whether you want, a platinum or a white gold. Is it heavy? Is it light for you to wear? Can I wear it in the shower, or can I only wear it? All those practical aspects that are definitely going to influence, what kind of watch you buy. And then after that, condition is key. You want to find a watch that's been either well maintained or in as new condition, or as new as possible anyway. And I think finally is do your research about what are the real value of your watch on the secondary market. You have to remember that if you're going into a store and buying a brand new watch, if you decide that you're going to resell down the line, more than likely, just like any other luxury car, you will take a loss on the value of the watch, probably between 40 to 80% of what the initial retail was upon resale, but that's the cost of ownership, and that reverses eventually if the watch that you actually bought eventually becomes a collectible one.
Well, thank you very much, Julien, for coming in and sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you very much.
That's all from us here in the studio, but if you want more updates or insights, just click back to the Dukascopy website.